Good morning, Prime Minister. Could we ask you to stand here?
Zelf daar.
Zie je maar goed is als ik heb
Ik ga tot bij een gendarme. Ja, met gendarme contre 50
Ja, die staat er dan over.
Shame to say, like you got to say.
The Liverpoolians set fire to an Italian flag and a few bottles were exchanged, and then all of a sudden the Liverpoolians decided they want to clear the Italians out of this area, and they did just that.
How serious a blow has this been to Britain's reputation abroad, do you think?
A very serious blow indeed, and our people feel it.
I was particularly ashamed, really.
The English, yes, everybody says the English are crazy.
10 000 personnes qui viennent, 10 000 personnes qui
Quand il y a
viennent.
une manifestation ici à Bruxelles, on peut être à 10 000, eh bien tout s'arrange.
I wish we could get those responsible, get them before a court and stiff sentences so that they stop anyone else.
If the Belgian police had done their job, we wouldn't have seen the massacre which millions of our citizens had to witness.
I think that we're going to be severely punished.
I will not allow new football manifestation with British clubs.
If you can only play a major game with mounted police and police all around the ground, that's not the football we know, and it's not the football we're proud of.
The scenes of death at Heysel covered the front pages of most of Belgium's newspapers this morning, and those who hadn't heard of the tragedy in special radio and television bulletins were quick to turn to the full inside pages of photographs of the dead and dying fans. King Baudouin of Belgium on the left went this morning to the military hospital where the worst of last night's casualties were taken, and went into the bedsides of some of those still being treated. His Prime Minister, Wilfried Martins, also visited the injured, and afterwards expressed his government's profound shock and concern.
We think we have, in fact, to take now very drastic measures in that field.
Just what form those measures might take was under discussion at a meeting at the Interior Ministry of government officials, police, Brussels city authorities, and Belgian Football Union and UEFA officials. Together they examined every detail of what happened before, during and after the Heysel tragedy, and as Interior Minister Charles Ferdinand Nothomb afterwards told a packed press conference, found every precaution had been taken. But British clubs were now to be temporarily banned from playing in Belgium.
So long as the European Union or the British club did not take the measures to avoid, to give us the insurance to avoid such horrible things, I will not allow, and I will ask the government to confirm this position, I will not allow new football manifestation with British clubs.
In taking this decision, Mr. Minister, are you aware of the fact clearly that you will be penalising those supporters who are not responsible and never have been responsible for football hooliganism?
I understand that, and I have hesitated before taking this position. But I think we must give the insurance at all the supporters who come to Belgium that such a drama will never occur again.
Belgians we spoke to in central Brussels this afternoon blamed the deaths above all on drunken British fans and to a lesser extent the match organisers.
I think that perhaps they could have people pass some alcoholic test before going into such a stadium, which they did not. People were drinking the whole day. And logically, such a thing might happen.
Do you think they should be kept out of Belgium and, in fact, out of European football?
That's going to be. I'm sure of that. I would be surprised if it would not be.
The English, yes, everybody says the English are crazy.
Do you think they should be kept out of Belgium and, in fact, out of European football?
I think, yes. Such things may not happen anymore.
Such terrible events inevitably attract their own voyeurs. Heysel Stadium today seemed surrounded by people craning to peek inside at the place where 38 people were crushed to death. But their intrusive curiosity belies the way the Heysel tragedy has stirred Belgium and its people into uncharacteristically decisive action against the hooligans it finds totally abhorrent. Charles Hodson, ITN, Brussels.
Good morning, Prime Minister. Could we ask you to stand here?
Could you tell us what the outcome of your meeting has been?
We have had a long discussion, and I think there are 5 things which I would like to tell you about. First, we have sent a message to the Prime Minister of Italy, Signor Craxi, and the Prime Minister of Belgium, Monsieur Martins, expressing our horror and revulsion, and saying that we feel certain that Signor Craxi, as the nation most affected, will set up a disaster fund. And we believe that it will be the expectation and hope of the British people that we should contribute to that. And so we're making an immediate initial contribution of £250,000. We have also asked our ambassador in Mexico to get in touch with Mr. Milichip. We have to do it this way because it's still night there, and he'll be able to do it most quickly, because we feel that Mr. Milichip and perhaps 1 or 2 of his colleagues will wish to return immediately in view of the enormity of last night's events, and our ambassador, of course, will stand ready to help with any of the arrangements. So he will be going in at breakfast time in Mexico City. And the third thing is that, as you know, I had arranged a meeting with the Football Association on the 21st of June to discuss their responses to our previous meeting and suggestions, and to decide precisely what should be done before the next season. I think that meeting must be brought forward now so that we can get things into action, none of them before the next season, and therefore I'm asking them if they'll bring it forward. Perhaps not next week, but immediately in the following week. And the 4th thing, I have asked if I could see John Smith. I think that he might wish immediately to get back to Liverpool with his team, but the moment he can, I would like to see him myself. And of course we can get him down here quickly. And also I've asked to see some of the football correspondents who saw what happened with their own eyes. And I heard one on BBC this morning who, it seemed to me, gave a very, very vivid account. And I've asked a group of them if when they return, and maybe tonight or tomorrow morning, just as soon as they can, they'd come in so that I can talk to them about what happened and see if they have any fresh ideas. As you know, I've talked to Peter Bottomley, and he's going round the hospitals this morning. And finally, the Home Office make it very clear that the police will give every possible assistance from this end. On these things, international cooperation matters very much indeed.
Prime Minister,
so those are the immediate things. Can we go one at a time?
Some royal messages have passed, I think, Prime Minister.
I believe that, yes, I believe that Her Majesty has sent a message. She goes to, obviously, to the King and the President.
Are you satisfied that the government is doing everything it can to stop this kind of violence?
If you have any ideas that we're not pursuing, please let us know. Everyone wants the same thing. Football used to be our national game. It was renowned for its sportsmanship. There are some people who are upsetting the whole thing. Everyone wants to get those before the courts and stiff sentences. Everyone. But you and I know that in our courts you've got to get evidence against each and every one that stands up in a court of law. Now that is why it is so important to get good television cameras. I'm not only talking about television for transmission, I'm talking about total observation of football crowds so that you can identify people and get the evidence. And that was one of the proposals which we think should have maximum priority and be right at the top of finance, because you've got to get evidence in our courts. Now, I watched last night, I watched what people were saying, I felt exactly the same. I wish we could get those responsible, get them before a court and stiff sentences so that they stop anyone else in their tracks from doing this. Now, that's what we want to do, because we want to make it a wonderful game again for people to go and watch. The question is how? And you've got the 2 things. We had that terrible thing at Bradford. You've got the safety, from terrible things like that, but you've also got the safety from football hooliganism. If there's anything that we're not following up, please let us know. But the police are having maximum cooperation. We're cooperating with the Football Association. We're making Divisions 3 and 4 come under the safety regulations. Anyone has any other ideas, they will be followed up, because you can imagine how the whole of football feels. If you can only play a major game with mounted police and police all around the ground, that's not the football we know, and it's not the football we're proud of.
Would you support a ban on British football going to Europe?
I think that both the European Football Association, UEFA, will obviously be considering what to do, and I am certain that Mr. Millerchip and the Football Association themselves will wish to consider immediately whether the Football Association should take any initiatives. I think we're all... It isn't that we're numb, we're worse than numb. We witnessed that agony. And if I might say so, it's even worse after nearly 24 hours than it was when we saw it, because the full enormity is coming home as we saw those scenes on television. Everything but everything must be done. But in the end, it comes to getting hold of the perpetrators of these terrible things. That requires action by the Football Association. If need be, it requires any fresh legislation. They'll get the full cooperation of the police, and it requires the full cooperation of the people in those clubs, because they know who are their supporters and they know who are not.
Prime Minister...
So we will be acting on every single way. And I felt so much for what some people were saying on the television last night as they were commenting on it, because I felt my blood was boiling too.
How serious a blow has this been to Britain's reputation abroad, do you think?
A very serious blow indeed, and our people feel it. Everyone feels it. And this might make it easier to get through any changes that we need, or I hope if there's any evidence against particular people, that people will come forward with that evidence, because it's the thugs that are destroying football. It's not the families who want to go. The families are afraid to go with the thugs there. It's the thugs, and if anyone has any evidence, I hope they will come forward.
What Mrs. Thatcher must do, as a minimum, is to set up a football board to take over the responsibilities for crowd safety and control. But most important of all, policing is at present paid for by clubs. That's not good enough. What the government should be doing is to give the police the responsibility for policing football crowds and giving them the right and the obligation under public safety to determine who will sit where, to have dividers between fans and have police in between. If that kind of thing had happened at Brussels, if the Belgian police had done their job, we wouldn't have seen the dead and the injured and the massacre to which we, millions of our citizens and millions of people all over the world, had to witness the shame of Liverpool fans.
Do you think there are not dangers, though, in making these judgments before full responsibility can be apportioned?
Well, if you like to play about with words, that this is not, you know, this is not a judicial inquiry that we need. We need action. The silent majority also has a responsibility in this matter, and they could help to ensure that the worst of hooliganism is prevented or frowned upon, and that the people who go to these games should also feel that they can do something about it. There is a lot of good talent in it. I think football will survive, but we need to do something about the safety of our grounds, and the government has got to stop talking, and Mrs. Thatcher must act.
It was a night when a good reputation was ruined. Liverpool fans have always been generally well behaved. Now they returned home to the news that more than 40 people had died, and they were bearing much of the blame.
What sparked the violence?
The Scousers, you've got to say it.
They were getting taunted, though, weren't they? They were getting taunted, like, by all the, you know, the Italian fans, like. Would you say it was the Liverpool fans that started it?
Yeah,
they started running over it, like.
Shame to say it, like, but you've got to say it.
There's a section of the ground which supposedly had been sold to other nationalities, and that's how it was officially described. It was a basically a mixed bag of Italians, 5 or 6 to 1, and Liverpudlians. The Liverpudlians set fire to an Italian flag, and a few bottles were exchanged, and then all of a sudden the Liverpudlians decided they wanted to clear the Italians out of this area, and they did just that.
There was about an hour to go before the kick-off. Well, I'd lost track, maybe less than an hour, when I looked across to where the Juventus fans was, and there was a young Liverpool lad there. He couldn't have been much above 10 years old, and he was getting kicked something awful by a group of Juventus supporters because he was in with them and he'd been singing. And when, I suppose you've seen the bits on telly of the Liverpool fans going across, they weren't in a sense going across to fight, they wanted to get that kid out. All hell broke loose then. The Juventus fans, instead of just moving a little bit back and getting out of the way, they just charged to one end. The barrier went down, now there's 40 people dead.
This morning, a memorial service for Harry Catterick, a former manager of Liverpool's rivals Everton, was dominated by last night's tragedy. There was a minute's silence for the dead and injured, and the Bishop of Liverpool led prayers for peace on the terraces and an end to the bloodshed, which he said had battered still further Liverpool's pride. For the Deputy Leader of Liverpool's Council, Derek Hatton, restoring that reputation is a priority. He says he'll lead a delegation to Turin to try to repair some of the damage.
Well, obviously what we've got to do now is ensure that the relationships between Liverpool and Turin, the relationship between Britain and Europe are cemented, because quite a lot of harm has been done last night as far as European football is concerned, and the city has to take some responsibility for that. I mean, obviously we are convinced that it was a small group of idiots that were responsible for last night, and certainly not the vast majority of Liverpool supporters, who are just as horrified as we were what we saw on the television last night. And certainly we will be now approaching the government of Turin to say that if necessary we will be prepared to go over there, not only to meet the government of Turin, but also to meet the families of those people who've suffered tragedy in the last 12 hours.
Dealing with the tragedy at home, Merseyside Police have set up a special communications room to answer inquiries. So far they've had more than 2,000 calls, but at the moment they know of only one injured fan from Merseyside. There was to have been a civic reception for the Liverpool team who arrived back here this afternoon. That has now been cancelled as this city comes to terms with the tragedy which happened in Brussels last night. Michael Macmillan, News at 1 in Liverpool.
I was particularly ashamed, really. And I think that we're going to be severely punished. I do, really. And
do you think it's going to be the end of English football in Europe for a while?
I think certainly for a while. I'm not prejudging anything, and I certainly hope it doesn't happen if we behaved ourselves. But until we can actually sort the problem out and the government gets to grips with the situation, you know, and actually gives some proper punishments for people that do misbehave in this way, you know, then I don't think really that we deserve to be in Europe.
Do you think British football now deserves to be severely punished?
Yes, I do, really, in all honesty, and me as a director of a football club, you know, our club would financially suffer because of that, and most of the clubs that go into Europe will financially suffer. But at the end of the day, we have to have a game. We have to have a game of sorts, and unless it's attractive to people to come in safety, you know, then really I think we have to be prepared for the worst.